Chapter 1. The Perfect Facade. Lana sat by the large bay window, the early morning sun casting a warm, golden glow across the cozy living room. The room was filled with the scent of freshly brewed coffee, a comforting aroma that mingled with the faint fragrance of the blooming jasmine outside. She held her favorite mug, a hand-painted ceramic piece she had picked up during their honeymoon in Italy, and took a slow, deliberate sip. The rich, robust flavor of the coffee filled her mouth, a blend Carl always took pride in brewing. It was perfect, as always, and she allowed herself a small, contented smile. The morning was quiet, much like any other in their 10 years of marriage. Birds sang outside, their melodious chirping creating a symphony of nature, and the gentle rustle of leaves in the light breeze added a soothing undertone. The serenity of the moment was something Lana cherished deeply. She glanced around the living room, taking in the carefully curated decor. Soft, earth-toned walls complemented the dark hardwood floors, and plush sofas with an array of colorful throw pillows invited one to sink in and relax. Family photos adorned the walls, capturing moments of joy and love. Their wedding day, vacations, holidays spent with loved ones. Carl was already at work as usual. He was a successful real estate developer, known for his keen eye for lucrative projects and his relentless work ethic. His job demanded long hours and frequent travel, something Lana had grown accustomed to over the years. She admired his dedication and the passion he poured into his work, even though there were times she wished he would spend more time at home. Yet, she couldn't deny that his absences made his returns even more special. When he was around, he was always charming and attentive, making her feel cherished and loved. Their home was a testament to their success. A beautiful house in a serene neighborhood, each room a reflection of their combined tastes and aspirations. Lana, an accomplished interior designer, freelanced from home, which allowed her the flexibility to manage the household and their active social life. Her touch was evident in every corner of the house, from the elegant living room to the cozy, book-filled study to the serene, nature-inspired bedroom. She often hosted dinners and parties, occasions that Carl's colleagues and their friends eagerly attended. Everyone admired their seemingly perfect relationship, the epitome of a loving and successful partnership. However, beneath this perfect facade, Lana occasionally felt a nagging sense of unease. Carl's frequent late nights and sudden business trips had become more frequent over the past few years. At first, she attributed it to his growing success and the increasing demands of his job. But as the nights grew longer and the trips more frequent, doubt began to creep into her mind. Whenever she voiced her concerns, Carl would reassure her with a charming smile and plausible explanations. "Just a last-minute meeting, love," he would say, brushing a kiss on her forehead. "You know how unpredictable this business can be." She wanted to believe him. After all, Carl had never given her any reason to doubt his fidelity. His affection and attention were unwavering when he was home, and he always made an effort to make her feel special. But there were moments, fleeting and rare, when she would catch a shadow in his eyes, a flicker of something she couldn't quite place. It was during these moments that the seed of doubt was planted, taking root in the corners of her mind, no matter how much she tried to dismiss it. Lana shook her head slightly, as if to dispel the troubling thoughts. She looked out the window, watching the sunlight dance on the leaves of the trees lining their street. The world outside seemed so peaceful, so perfect, much like her life appeared to be. She took another sip of her coffee, savoring its warmth and comfort. She resolved to focus on her work and their upcoming anniversary party, an event that she hoped would rekindle the spark and banish her doubts once and for all. As the day unfolded, Lana busied herself with her projects, sketching out designs and making calls to clients. The rhythmic routine of her work helped to keep her mind occupied, but the unease lingered in the background, a subtle, persistent presence. She reminded herself of the love and commitment she and Carl had shared for the past decade. Their life together was built on trust and mutual respect, and she was determined to preserve that foundation. In the quiet moments, however, when the distractions faded and she was left alone with her thoughts, the doubt would resurface, gnawing at her peace of mind. She wondered if Carl's reassurances were enough, if the explanations he offered could truly account for the growing distance she felt between them. She resolved to pay closer attention, to look for signs that might confirm or dispel her suspicions. That evening, as she prepared dinner, Lana found herself glancing at the clock more frequently. Carl had called to say he would be late, another meeting running over. She forced a smile, trying to convince herself that it was just another busy day at the office. The dinner grew cold on the table as she waited, her appetite waning with each passing minute. When Carl finally walked through the door, his tie askew and his hair slightly mussed, he greeted her with a tired smile. "Sorry I'm late, love. The meeting went longer than expected." "It's all right," Lana replied, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I've kept your dinner warm." They sat together, exchanging the usual pleasantries about their day, but Lana's mind was elsewhere. She watched Carl closely, looking for any telltale signs, any hint of deception. He seemed genuine, his tiredness not unusual for someone in his line of work. Yet the unease remained, a silent, unwelcome guest at their table. That night, as they lay in bed, Carl drifted off to sleep almost immediately, exhausted from his long day. Lana, however, stared at the ceiling, her mind racing. She knew she needed to address her concerns, to find a way to either lay them to rest or confront the truth. But for now, she wrapped herself in the comfort of their shared warmth, hoping that tomorrow would bring clarity. As the days turned into weeks, Lana continued to navigate the delicate balance of her life. She focused on her work, poured her energy into planning their anniversary party, and tried to maintain the appearance of their perfect relationship. But the doubt never fully disappeared, lurking in the shadows, waiting for a moment of weakness to resurface. Lana knew she couldn't live like this forever. She needed answers, and she needed them soon. The seed of doubt had been planted, and it was only a matter of time before it grew into something she could no longer ignore. Chapter 2. The Revelation. It was a warm summer evening, and the golden light of the setting sun cast long, soft shadows across the kitchen. Lana stood at the sink, her hands moving methodically as she washed the last of the dinner dishes. The window above the sink was open, letting in the gentle evening breeze that carried the scent of blooming roses from the garden. It was a peaceful, almost idyllic moment, one that should have filled her with contentment. But a lingering sense of unease had been gnawing at her, growing stronger with each passing day. Carl had been unusually quiet during dinner, his responses short and distracted. Lana had tried to engage him in conversation about their upcoming anniversary party, but his mind seemed elsewhere. She had noticed him glancing at his phone several times, a worried expression flitting across his face. When the phone finally rang, he had excused himself with a quick, "I'll take this outside," something he rarely did. Lana paused, her heart beating faster as curiosity got the better of her. She wiped her hands on a dish towel and quietly followed him to the back porch, careful to keep her steps light and her presence unnoticed. The sliding glass door was slightly ajar, and she positioned herself just inside, where she could hear him clearly without being seen. Carl's voice was low and tense, almost desperate. "I told you, we can't keep doing this. I love you, but it's getting too risky. Lana is starting to suspect something." Lana's heart sank, a cold wave of nausea washing over her as the realization hit her like a freight train. She felt her legs weaken and gripped the edge of the counter to steady herself. Carl was having an affair. The words echoed in her mind, each repetition more devastating than the last. It wasn't just a one-time thing. It had been going on for years. The truth that she had feared for so long was now undeniable, spoken aloud by the man she had loved and trusted. She pressed a trembling hand to her mouth, stifling a sob that threatened to escape. Tears blurred her vision, but she couldn't tear her eyes away from Carl, who stood just a few feet away, oblivious to her presence. She backed away slowly, retreating to the safety of the kitchen before he could notice her. She needed to get out of there, to escape the crushing reality that had just shattered her world. For the next few days, Lana moved through her life in a daze. The house, once a sanctuary, now felt like a prison filled with memories of a love that was nothing but a lie. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every time she looked at Carl, she felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and heartbreak. He carried on as if nothing had changed, his smiles and affectionate gestures now tainted with deceit. Lana's mind raced with questions. How long had this been going on? Who was the other woman? How could Carl betray her so completely and still look her in the eye? She needed to know more, to understand the full extent of his betrayal. She couldn't confront him without knowing the truth. She needed evidence, something concrete to break through the web of lies he had spun around their lives. She decided to hire a private investigator. It was a step she never thought she would take, something out of a detective novel rather than her own life. But desperate times called for desperate measures. She needed someone who could uncover the truth, someone who could provide her with the answers she so desperately needed. The next day, Lana sat in her home office, her hands shaking as she dialed the number of a private investigator she had found online. Her heart pounded as she waited for the call to connect, each ring amplifying her anxiety. Finally, a woman's voice answered. "Marissa Investigations, how can I help you?" Lana took a deep breath, her voice barely a whisper. "I need your help. I think my husband is having an affair." Marissa was calm and professional, her voice steady and reassuring. "I understand. Why don't we set up a meeting to discuss the details? Can you come to my office tomorrow?" "Yes," Lana replied, her voice trembling. "I'll be there." The following morning, Lana drove across town to Marissa's office, a small but well-kept space in a quiet building. Marissa herself was in her late 30s, with sharp features and a no-nonsense demeanor. She listened attentively as Lana explained her suspicions and handed over all the information she had on Carl's movements. Marissa nodded, her expression serious. "I'll get to the bottom of this, but you need to be prepared for whatever I find. It might not be easy to hear." Lana nodded, her resolve hardening. "I need to know the truth, no matter what." Days turned into weeks as Marissa conducted her investigation. Lana went through the motions of her daily life, trying to act normal around Carl while her mind raced with possibilities. She avoided confrontations, knowing she needed concrete evidence before she could confront him. She became adept at masking her true feelings, her smiles never quite reaching her eyes, her laughter sounding hollow even to her own ears. Finally, Marissa called with the results. They met again at the same cafe where they had first discussed the case. Marissa laid out the findings. Carl had been having an affair with a woman named Elise, a colleague from work. The affair had been going on for over 3 years, with numerous trips and late-night rendezvous. The evidence was irrefutable. Photos, emails, phone records. Lana felt a cold fury settle over her as she looked at the damning evidence. It was worse than she had imagined. The betrayal was deeper, more calculated. She thanked Marissa for her work and paid her handsomely. Now, armed with the truth, she began to plan her next steps. The following days were a whirlwind of emotions. Lana fluctuated between rage and despair, her heart aching with the weight of Carl's betrayal. She knew she had to confront him, but she wanted to do it on her terms. She wanted to reclaim her power, to make him understand the depth of the pain he had caused. She started to craft a meticulous plan, one that would ensure he felt the same agony she had endured. But for now, she kept her newfound knowledge to herself, a storm brewing beneath her calm exterior. She continued to play the role of the loving wife, all the while plotting her revenge. She knew it would take time and patience, but she was determined to see it through. As she lay in bed next to Carl that night, she stared at the ceiling, her mind racing with thoughts of what was to come. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, fraught with emotional turmoil. But she also knew she couldn't live with the lies any longer. She had to confront the truth, no matter how painful it might be. And so, Lana prepared herself for the battle ahead, determined to emerge stronger and more resilient. She would not let Carl's betrayal define her. She would reclaim her life, piece by piece, and forge a new path forward. Chapter 3. The Investigator. Lana sat in the driver's seat of her car, parked a block away from the small cafe where she was about to meet the private investigator. She took a deep breath, her fingers gripping the steering wheel so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She glanced at her reflection in the rearview mirror, straightening her hair and taking a moment to compose herself. She couldn't afford to appear as vulnerable as she felt. The cafe was on the other side of town, far enough from her usual haunts that she wouldn't be recognized. It was a quaint little place, with worn wooden tables and mismatched chairs that gave it a cozy, eclectic charm. The smell of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the scent of pastries baking in the oven, creating an inviting atmosphere that contrasted sharply with the turmoil inside her. Marissa was already seated at a corner table when Lana walked in, a steaming cup of coffee in front of her. She was in her late 30s, with sharp, almost hawk-like features that gave her an air of intense focus. Her dark hair was pulled back into a neat ponytail, and she wore a tailored blazer over a crisp white shirt. As Lana approached, Marissa looked up, her eyes assessing and direct. "Lana," she greeted, standing up and extending her hand. "I'm Marissa. Please have a seat." Lana shook her hand, appreciating the firm grip. She sat down, feeling a mix of apprehension and determination. "Thank you for meeting with me," she said, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions swirling inside her. Marissa nodded, her expression serious. "Why don't you start from the beginning and tell me everything you know?" Lana took a deep breath and began to recount her suspicions, detailing Carl's frequent late nights, sudden business trips, and the phone call she had overheard. She handed Marissa a folder containing Carl's itinerary, phone records, and other bits of information she had managed to gather without raising his suspicion. Marissa listened attentively, her sharp eyes never leaving Lana's face. She took notes, occasionally asking a question or requesting clarification. When Lana finished, Marissa leaned back in her chair, her expression thoughtful. "I'll get to the bottom of this," Marissa assured her, her voice firm and confident. "But you need to be prepared for whatever I find. It might not be easy to hear." Lana nodded, her resolve hardening with each passing moment. "I need to know the truth, no matter what." The next few days were a blur of anxious waiting. Lana tried to carry on with her daily routine, going through the motions of her work and household chores while her mind raced with possibilities. She forced herself to smile and act normal around Carl, even though every moment spent in his presence felt like a knife twisting in her heart. She avoided confrontations, knowing she needed concrete evidence before she could confront him. Weeks passed, each day stretching out in a torturous wait for Marissa's call. Lana's mind churned with thoughts of Carl and Elise, imagining their clandestine meetings and whispered conversations. She oscillated between rage and heartbreak, her emotions a turbulent storm barely contained beneath her composed exterior. Finally, the call came. Lana's heart pounded as she listened to Marissa's voice on the other end of the line, calm and professional. "I've completed the investigation. We need to meet." They arranged to meet at the same cafe, and Lana felt a mixture of dread and anticipation as she walked through the door. Marissa was already there, a folder in front of her on the table. She looked up and gave Lana a reassuring nod as she approached. "Please sit down," Marissa said, gesturing to the chair opposite her. Lana sat, her eyes fixed on the folder. "What did you find?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marissa opened the folder and began to lay out the findings. There were photos of Carl and Elise together, their body language unmistakably intimate. There were copies of emails and text messages filled with affectionate words and plans for their next meetings. There were records of hotel bookings and flight itineraries spanning over 3 years of deceit. Lana felt a cold fury settle over her as she looked at the damning evidence. It was worse than she had imagined. The betrayal was deeper, more calculated. Each piece of evidence felt like a dagger, twisting in her already wounded heart. She listened in silence as Marissa went through the details, her voice a distant hum against the roaring storm of emotions in Lana's mind. When Marissa finished, she looked at Lana with a mixture of sympathy and concern. "I know this is a lot to take in," she said gently, "but now you have the truth. You can decide what to do next." Lana nodded, her expression hardening with determination. "Thank you, Marissa," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "You've given me exactly what I needed." She paid Marissa handsomely, knowing the information she had received was worth every penny. Armed with the truth, Lana began to plan her next steps. She knew she couldn't confront Carl without a clear plan. She needed to ensure that her actions would have the maximum impact, that he would feel the same agony she had endured. Over the next few days, Lana formulated a meticulous plan. She spent hours going over the evidence, thinking through every possible scenario. She reached out to a lawyer, ensuring she knew her rights and options. She began to gather documents, securing her financial position and preparing for the confrontation that would inevitably come. Lana's outward demeanor remained calm and composed, but beneath the surface, she was a maelstrom of emotions. Each day she played the role of the loving wife, carefully masking her true feelings while plotting her revenge. She knew it would take time and patience, but she was determined to see it through. One evening, as she lay in bed next to Carl, she stared at the ceiling, her mind racing with thoughts of what was to come. The weight of the knowledge she now carried pressed down on her, but it also gave her a sense of power and control. She would not be a victim. She would reclaim her life piece by piece and forge a new path forward. In the quiet darkness, Lana vowed to herself that she would emerge from this stronger and more resilient. Carl's betrayal would not define her. She would confront the truth and take back control of her destiny, and when the time was right, she would make him understand the depth of the pain he had caused. Chapter 4. The Plan. Lana sat at her desk in the home office, a place that had once been her sanctuary of creativity and inspiration. Now it was the war room where she plotted her revenge. The evidence Marissa had gathered lay neatly organized in a binder, a grim testament to Carl's betrayal. Lana knew that a direct confrontation would be too simple, too unsatisfying. She wanted Carl to feel the same pain and betrayal she had felt, to make him question everything he thought he knew about their life together. And so she began to craft a meticulous plan, drawing on her skills as an interior designer to create the perfect trap. The first phase of her plan involved subtly altering their home. Lana knew Carl was a creature of habit, and any disruptions to his routine would unsettle him. She started with small changes, moving furniture just slightly out of place, swapping out familiar items with new ones that didn't quite fit. She changed the decor in their bedroom, opting for colder, more sterile colors that contrasted sharply with the warm, inviting palette they had once chosen together. She left little hints of another presence, a lipstick shade she never wore on the bathroom counter, an unfamiliar scarf draped over a chair. Carl noticed the changes but didn't seem overly concerned, chalking it up to her artistic whims. "Another one of your redesigns?" he asked one evening, a forced smile on his face as he surveyed the living room, now filled with sharp lines and cool tones. Lana nodded, her expression unreadable. "Just trying something new," she replied, watching him closely for any sign of suspicion. Next, she began to withdraw emotionally, becoming more distant and preoccupied. She spent long hours in her office, ostensibly working on projects, but in reality refining her plan. She stopped initiating conversations, responding to Carl's attempts at intimacy with monosyllabic answers and averted eyes. Carl tried to bridge the gap, but his efforts were half-hearted. He was too consumed with his own guilt and the fear of being caught. "Lana, is everything all right?" he asked one night, his voice laced with genuine concern. "You've been so distant lately." "I'm fine," she replied, her tone flat. "Just busy with work." Carl sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I miss you," he said softly. Lana forced a smile, a pang of sadness piercing through her resolve. "I miss you too," she lied, knowing that the Carl she missed was a figment of her past, a man who no longer existed. While she distanced herself from Carl, Lana also started to reconnect with old friends and made new ones, building a support network without his knowledge. She reached out to college friends she hadn't spoken to in years, rekindling old bonds over coffee and lunch dates. She joined a book club, attended yoga classes, and started volunteering at a local art gallery. Each new connection was a thread in the safety net she was weaving for herself, a foundation she could rely on once her plan was set in motion. One evening, as she sat in a cozy cafe with her old friend Sarah, Lana confided in her about the affair. She chose her words carefully, revealing just enough to elicit sympathy without exposing her full plan. "I don't know how you've kept it together," Sarah said, shaking her head in disbelief. If it were me, I'd have kicked him out the moment I found out. Lana smiled sadly, stirring her tea. It's not that simple, she replied. I need to be smart about this. Sarah reached across the table, squeezing Lana's hand. Whatever you need, I'm here for you. Just say the word. Lana nodded, grateful for the support. Thank you, Sarah. That means a lot. As weeks turned into months, Lana's plan began to take shape. She meticulously documented every interaction she had with Carl, every slip of his facade that revealed his true nature. She started keeping a journal, recording her thoughts and feelings in painstaking detail, creating a written record that would serve as both evidence and catharsis. She also began to gather financial records, ensuring that she had a clear picture of their assets and liabilities. She met with a lawyer, discreetly discussing her options and laying the groundwork for a divorce that would leave her in the strongest possible position. Each step she took was calculated and deliberate, designed to strip Carl of the power he had wielded over her for so long. Meanwhile, Carl grew more anxious and paranoid. The changes in the house, Lana's emotional distance, and her growing independence all gnawed at him. He began to question her about her activities, his tone tinged with suspicion. "Where were you this afternoon?" he asked one evening as she returned from a book club meeting. "Out with friends," Lana replied coolly, hanging up her coat. "Why do you ask?" Carl shrugged, his expression guarded. "Just curious. You seem to be spending a lot of time away from home lately." Lana met his gaze, her eyes cold and unwavering. "Is that a problem?" Carl hesitated, then shook his head. "No, of course not. I just miss having you around." Lana forced a smile, the irony of his words not lost on her. "I'm sure you do," she said, her tone laced with subtle mockery. As the anniversary of their first date approached, Lana decided it was time to escalate her plan. She booked a weekend getaway for them, choosing a quaint bed and breakfast in a picturesque town a few hours away. She wanted to create an opportunity for Carl to feel the full weight of his guilt and betrayal away from the familiar comforts of home. The weekend began pleasantly enough. They arrived at the charming inn, with its ivy-covered walls and cozy rooms, and Carl seemed genuinely pleased by the surprise. "This is wonderful, Lana," he said, his smile genuine for the first time in months. "Thank you for arranging this." Lana smiled back, her heart heavy with the knowledge of what was to come. "I thought it would be nice for us to get away, to reconnect," she said, her words carefully chosen. They spent the day exploring the town, visiting quaint shops and enjoying leisurely meals at local restaurants. Lana played her part perfectly, laughing and smiling as if everything were normal. But beneath the surface, she was watching Carl closely, noting every flicker of guilt and anxiety that crossed his face. That evening, as they sat by the fireplace in their room, Lana decided it was time to set the final stage of her plan in motion. "Carl," she began, her voice soft and contemplative, "I've been doing a lot of thinking lately." Carl looked up from his book, his expression curious. "About what?" "About us," Lana replied, meeting his gaze. "About our marriage and the life we've built together." Carl's face tightened with concern. "Is something wrong?" Lana took a deep breath, forcing herself to remain calm. "I don't know," she said honestly. "I feel like there's a distance between us, a gap that's been growing wider over the years." Carl sighed, closing his book and setting it aside. "I know," he admitted. "I feel it too, but I don't know how to fix it." Lana nodded, her eyes filling with unshed tears. "I think we need to be honest with each other," she said, her voice trembling. "Completely honest." Carl's face paled, his eyes widening with fear. "What do you mean?" Lana held his gaze, her expression resolute. "I know about Elise," she said quietly. "I know about the affair." The words hung in the air, heavy and unforgiving. Carl's face crumpled, his hands trembling as he reached for her. "Lana, Don't!" she interrupted, her voice sharp. "Don't try to explain. Just tell me the truth. How long has it been going on?" Carl's shoulders slumped, defeat etched into every line of his face. 3 years, he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "It's been going on for 3 years." Lana closed her eyes, the confirmation hitting her like a physical blow. "Why?" she asked, her voice choked with emotion. "Why did you do it?" Carl shook his head, tears streaming down his face. "I don't know," he said helplessly. "I was stupid and selfish, and I didn't think about the consequences. I never wanted to hurt you." Lana laughed bitterly, the sound harsh in the quiet room. "Well, you did," she said coldly. "You hurt me more than I ever thought possible." Carl reached for her again, his eyes pleading. "Please, Lana, can we try to fix this? Can you ever forgive me?" Lana stared at him for a long moment, her heart torn between the love she had once felt and the betrayal that had shattered it. "I don't know," she said finally. "I don't know if I can." She stood up, her movements slow and deliberate. "I'm going for a walk," she said, her voice steady. "I need some time to think." Carl watched her go, his face a mask of despair. Lana walked out of the inn and into the cool night air, her mind racing with the enormity of what she had just done. She had confronted the truth, and now she had to decide what to do with it. As she walked through the quiet streets, Lana knew that the hardest part was yet to come. She had to decide whether to stay and try to rebuild their shattered marriage or to walk away and start anew. But whatever she chose, she knew she had the strength and resilience to face the future. Lana's plan had been set in motion, and there was no turning back. Chapter 5. The Execution. The plan was meticulous, every detail considered, every potential variable accounted for. Lana wanted Carl to experience the shock and betrayal that she had felt when she discovered his affair. She wanted him to feel the same helplessness, the same crushing despair, so she crafted the perfect evening, a final act in their crumbling marriage, designed to deliver the ultimate blow. One evening, Lana invited Carl to a special dinner. She chose the occasion carefully, ensuring it was a night when Carl would be free from work obligations and other distractions. She dressed in a stunning red dress, the one he had always loved, a dress that made her feel powerful and in control. She spent hours preparing his favorite meal, herb-crusted lamb with roasted vegetables and a decadent chocolate dessert. She set the table with their finest china, polished the silverware until it gleamed, and lit tall, elegant candles that cast a warm glow across the room. Carl arrived home to the aroma of the delicious meal wafting through the air and the sight of Lana looking breathtakingly beautiful. He was surprised but pleased, thinking it was an attempt to rekindle their romance, to bridge the growing chasm between them. "Wow, this looks amazing," he said, his eyes lighting up with genuine appreciation. "What's the occasion?" "Just thought we could have a special night together," Lana replied with a serene smile, her eyes betraying none of the storm brewing within her. As they sat down to eat, Lana steered the conversation towards their relationship. She spoke of their happiest moments, their dreams and aspirations, the life they had built together. Carl relaxed, lulled into a false sense of security by the warmth and nostalgia. He reminisced along with her, recounting stories and laughing at shared memories. For a moment it almost felt like old times. But Lana had a script to follow, and she knew the time was right. The meal was nearly over, the dessert untouched, the atmosphere ripe for the final act. "I know about Elise," she said quietly, her voice cutting through the room like a knife. Carl's face drained of color. His fork clattered to his plate, and he stared at her in shock. "What did you say?" "I know about Elise," Lana repeated, her eyes boring into his, unwavering. "I've known for months." Carl stammered, trying to find words to deny it, to explain it away, but Lana cut him off with a wave of her hand. "I hired a private investigator," she continued, her voice calm and steady. "I have all the evidence, the photos, the emails, the hotel receipts. I know everything." Carl's shoulders slumped, and he buried his face in his hands. "I'm sorry, Lana. I never meant to hurt you." "It's too late for apologies," Lana said coldly, her voice devoid of the warmth it had held moments before. "I've already filed for divorce, and I want you out of this house by the end of the week." Carl looked up, stunned. "But where will I go?" "That's your problem," Lana replied, her tone unyielding. "You made your bed. Now you can lie in it." Carl's face crumpled with despair. He tried to plead with her, to bargain, but Lana remained firm. She had made her decision, and there was no turning back. She had given him months to come clean, to end the affair on his own terms, but he had chosen to continue the deception. Now he would face the consequences. Carl left that night, taking only a suitcase with him. The door closed behind him with a finality that echoed through the empty house. Lana stood by the window, watching him go, feeling a mixture of relief and sadness. She had loved him once, deeply, but that love had been tainted by his betrayal. The man she had married, the life they had built together, was gone. She had mourned that loss, and now she was ready to move on. She turned away from the window and walked through the house, the silence almost comforting. Each room held memories, both happy and painful, but they were just that, memories. She would not let them define her future. She had taken control of her life, made a difficult but necessary decision, and now she could begin to rebuild. Over the next few days, Lana set about reclaiming her space. She redecorated the bedroom, removing any traces of Carl's presence. She packed away photos and mementos, putting them in a box that she stored in the attic. She made plans to renovate the kitchen, transforming it into a space that reflected her tastes and preferences. She reached out to friends, accepting their offers of support and companionship, and began to rebuild her social life. Lana also threw herself into her work, taking on new projects and challenging herself creatively. She found solace in her art, using it as an outlet for her emotions. Her clients were thrilled with her designs, and her business began to thrive. Each day she grew stronger, more confident in her ability to forge a new path. The pain of Carl's betrayal would never fully disappear, but it no longer consumed her. She had faced the truth, confronted the man who had wronged her, and emerged on the other side with a renewed sense of purpose. One evening, as she sat by the bay window with a cup of tea, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of pink and gold, Lana felt a sense of peace. The future was uncertain, but it was hers to shape. She had reclaimed her life, and she was ready to embrace whatever came next. Chapter 6. The Aftermath. In the weeks that followed Carl's departure, Lana dedicated herself to rebuilding her life from the ground up. She threw herself into her work with a fervor that surprised even her. She took on new projects, exploring innovative designs and concepts that pushed her creativity to new heights. Her clients were thrilled with her fresh ideas, and word of her exceptional work spread quickly. Her business expanded, and she found herself busier than ever. Lana also made a concerted effort to reconnect with her friends and family. She reached out to those she had distanced herself from during the tumultuous years of her marriage. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Her loved ones welcomed her back with open arms, offering unwavering support and encouragement. They invited her to social gatherings, took her out for dinners, and spent hours talking with her, reminding her of the strength and resilience she had forgotten she possessed. Realizing the need for professional guidance, Lana began seeing a therapist. The sessions were challenging. Each one peeled back layers of pain, anger, and betrayal, but they were also cathartic. Her therapist helped her navigate her emotions, offering tools and strategies to cope with the overwhelming feelings that sometimes threatened to drown her. Slowly, she began to heal. She learned to forgive herself for not seeing the signs of Carl's infidelity sooner and to release the anger that had taken root in her heart. "I can't change the past," Lana told her therapist during one particularly enlightening session. "But I can shape my future." Her therapist smiled, nodding in agreement. "That's the spirit, Lana. You have the power to create a life that's fulfilling and joyful regardless of what happened before." Carl, on the other hand, was on a downward spiral. He moved in with Elise, but their relationship, built on deceit and infidelity, quickly soured under the strain of guilt and suspicion. The excitement of their illicit affair faded, replaced by a pervasive mistrust that eroded whatever affection they had shared. Carl found himself questioning Elise's fidelity, projecting his own guilt onto her. Their arguments grew frequent and intense, often ending with Carl storming out of their shared apartment. At work, Carl's performance began to suffer. The sharp, decisive businessman who had once commanded respect was replaced by a distracted, anxious shell of a man. He missed deadlines, made poor decisions, and alienated his colleagues with his erratic behavior. His superiors, who had once valued his contributions, lost patience with his decline. Eventually, Carl was forced to leave the company, a once promising career left in tatters. Lana heard about Carl's struggles through mutual friends who spoke of his downfall with a mix of pity and schadenfreude. She listened without comment, feeling a sense of detachment. She felt no sympathy for him. He had made his choices, and now he was facing the consequences. It was a stark reminder of the contrast between their paths. While Carl's life unraveled, Lana's was flourishing. She found solace in her newfound independence. Her days were filled with creativity and fulfillment, her nights with peaceful solitude. She discovered a love for gardening, transforming her backyard into a lush oasis of flowers and herbs. She took up painting again, filling canvases with vibrant colors and abstract forms that expressed the emotions she couldn't put into words. One weekend, she decided to take a trip alone. She drove to a coastal town she had always wanted to visit, renting a small cottage by the sea. The days were spent exploring sandy beaches, hiking along rugged cliffs, and dining at charming seaside cafes. The ocean's rhythmic waves and the salty breeze provided a sense of renewal, washing away the remnants of her old life. During one of her walks along the shore, Lana reflected on how far she had come. The pain of Carl's betrayal was still there, a faint scar that would never completely disappear, but it no longer defined her. She was stronger, more resilient, and more in tune with herself than she had ever been. Back at home, Lana continued to thrive. She attended workshops and seminars to hone her skills, networked with other professionals, and even began mentoring young designers. Her business reached new heights, and she gained recognition within the industry as a visionary and a leader. Socially, she blossomed. The friends she had reconnected with became a close-knit support system. They celebrated her successes, offered comfort during moments of doubt, and shared countless moments of laughter and joy. Lana also opened herself up to new relationships, cautiously dipping her toes back into the dating world. She met interesting, kind-hearted people who appreciated her for who she was, not who she had been as part of a couple. One evening, as she hosted a dinner party in her beautifully redesigned home surrounded by friends, Lana realized how much she had achieved. The laughter and conversation filled the space with warmth, and she felt a deep sense of contentment. The house, once a symbol of her failed marriage, had become a sanctuary of happiness and creativity. Carl's fate served as a constant reminder of the consequences of his actions, but Lana chose not to dwell on it. She had her own life to live, and she was determined to make the most of it. She had reclaimed her identity, rediscovered her passions, and built a future that was entirely her own. The journey had been long and arduous, but Lana emerged stronger and more self-assured. She learned to trust herself, to value her own worth, and to never again settle for less than she deserved. The betrayal that once threatened to destroy her had instead become the catalyst for a profound and transformative chapter in her life. And with each passing day, she continued to write her story, one of resilience, empowerment, and triumph. Chapter 7. A New Beginning. A year had passed since Carl left, and Lana stood in the doorway of her newly renovated home, taking in the transformation. The house that had once been a reminder of betrayal and heartache now symbolized her fresh start, her new life. Every room had been repainted with bright, cheerful colors that reflected her renewed spirit. The old furniture, heavy with memories, had been replaced with modern, comfortable pieces that she had carefully chosen herself. Her artistic touch was evident in every corner, with unique art pieces and cozy decor creating a warm, inviting atmosphere. The living room, which had once felt cold and oppressive, was now filled with light. Large windows allowed the sun to stream in, illuminating the space with natural warmth. The walls were adorned with her paintings, vibrant abstracts that spoke of her journey and emotional growth. A plush, cream-colored sofa sat in the center, surrounded by accent chairs in bold hues of teal and mustard. A patterned rug added texture and color to the polished wooden floor, tying the room together. In the kitchen, Lana had opted for a sleek, modern design. The countertops were a pristine white marble, and the cabinets were a deep navy blue, creating a striking contrast. She had installed state-of-the-art appliances, making the space both functional and beautiful. A small herb garden thrived on the windowsill, a testament to her love of gardening and her desire for fresh, homegrown ingredients. Her bedroom was a sanctuary of calm and serenity. She had chosen soft, muted tones for the walls and bedding, creating a peaceful retreat where she could unwind. The bed, with its luxurious linens and abundance of pillows, was a far cry from the one she had shared with Carl. A reading nook in the corner, complete with a comfortable chair and a small bookshelf, offered a cozy spot for her to escape into her favorite novels. The garden, once neglected and overgrown, had become a lush oasis. Lana spent countless hours tending to the flowers and plants, finding solace in the simple act of nurturing life. The garden was now a riot of color, with blooming roses, lavender, and daisies creating a picturesque scene. A small fountain bubbled softly, adding to the tranquil ambience. It was here, in this serene space, that Lana often found herself reflecting on her journey and dreaming about the future. Dating again was a cautious and deliberate process. Lana was careful, allowing herself to open up slowly. She had met a few interesting men, each bringing something new to her life. There was Tom, a kind-hearted teacher who shared her love of art and literature. They spent evenings discussing books and visiting galleries, enjoying each other's company without the pressure of rushing into a serious relationship. Then there was Mark, an adventurous photographer who introduced her to the joys of hiking and exploring the great outdoors. Their dates were filled with laughter and new experiences, reminding Lana of the world beyond her past. One evening, as Lana stood in her garden watching the sunset, she felt a deep sense of peace. The sky was a canvas of oranges, pinks, and purples, reflecting the myriad emotions she had experienced over the past year. She thought about the woman she had been and the woman she had become. She had been through hell and back, enduring pain and betrayal that had once seemed insurmountable. But she had come out stronger, more resilient, and more self-assured than she had ever been. The journey had not been easy. There were days when the weight of her past felt too heavy to bear, when the memories of Carl's betrayal threatened to pull her under. But with each step forward, each new project, and each moment of self-care, Lana had reclaimed her life and her sense of self-worth. She had learned to trust herself again, to listen to her instincts and honor her needs. She had built a life that was hers alone, filled with creativity, passion, and hope. As the last rays of the sun dipped below the horizon, Lana made her way back inside. She walked through her home, feeling a profound sense of gratitude for all she had achieved. She had created a space that was not just a house, but a true home, one that reflected her strength, her journey, and her dreams for the future. She knew that whatever the future held, she was ready to face it with courage and resilience. She was no longer defined by her past, no longer held back by the pain of betrayal. She was free, and she was determined to embrace every moment of her new beginning. Lana smiled as she settled into her reading nook, a cup of tea in hand and a book waiting to be opened. The pages of her past had been filled with sorrow and loss, but the pages of her future were blank, ready to be written with stories of joy, love, and endless possibilities. She was the author of her own life, and she couldn't wait to see what the next chapter would bring.